Good morning, it's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself, and today I want to talk about two topics that don't normally go together, but I actually see them being together. And the first one is how to break out of freeze. So if you've been living your life in fight, flight, or freeze, and you have a chronic condition, you are literally stuck in freeze. The other topic I want to talk about today is indecision. If you have a hard time making decisions between two things, and you have analysis paralysis when it comes to what to do, this is a form of, this is actually your living out freeze when you're incapable of making decisions because you're so afraid of choosing the wrong one. So most of us with chronic illness have indecision as one of our traits. We're very indecisive, and it's no doubt because indecision is one of the key things that happen when you're living in a freeze state. So let's talk about this for a second. Freeze state means you're stuck, you're frozen, you're afraid to move. And one of the things that usually comes out of that is being afraid to make a decision, to be able to choose which way to go. You're frozen. So I want to talk about these two states. I want to talk about learning how to make decisions and to break indecisiveness and how to make a decision and move forward. The more that we focus on making decisions and being able to make little decisions all the way to big decisions, we train ourselves to break out of the freeze response. This is one powerful way to break out of freeze. And as we know, when we get out of freeze, we can also get out of chronic illness, right? Because freeze is keeping us stuck in chronic illness, and one of the ways that we can do this is by starting to choose. It's like about movement. So it's another way. If you've watched some of my videos on breaking out of freeze, and if you haven't, go back and search my name and look for the freeze response. I have many of the obvious ways. Now, this is not normally talked about, but I want to discuss it today because it can be a key to helping you break out of freeze. So a lot of us with chronic illness will put off making decisions. And it could be anything from, what do I want for breakfast? Do I want this or that? Which diet do I want to do? Do I want to do this or that, right? Which protocol am I going to do? This or that? Which supplement am I going to take? This or that? What exercise is going to be best for me? This or that? And it could be not related to your healing. It could be like, what job am I going to take? What am I going to do tonight? What should I do about this weekend? What should I do about, there's always two decisions that it comes down to. And you start to go over them. And I guess this is the perfectionistic traits coming out in us with people with chronic illness, is that they believe deep down that there's a right decision and there's a wrong decision, okay? Because you've probably made the wrong decision several times in your life, and that's led to maybe where you are now. So we're afraid because we understand that there is right and there is wrong, and then there's living with the consequences of all of that when we choose wrong. So we think, as good, conscientious people, it is better for us to analyze, to look over the details. Sorry, there's a truck, hang on. So we analyze it, we look at it, we make lists, we think about it, we use our monkey brain to go over and over, and we think this makes us somehow more prepared to make the decision, that we've been thoughtful about it, that we're somehow going to be able to foresee the future and choose the one that's going to be best for us and everyone around us, right? But that's not really what we're doing. Indecision is a form of paralysis, and it's a form of procrastination. Why are we procrastinating? Eventually we have to make the decision, but we're procrastinating because we're just in a frozen state and we don't realize it. So the next time it is human nature to not be able to narrow it down to things and then have two choices and kind of be like back and forth on them. But when it becomes quickly more than you thought about it for, if it's something simple like what to choose for breakfast, and you're stuck in that for more than 5 minutes, then you have an issue. If it's a big life decision, like, should I take this job or that job, or move here or move here? Maybe that requires an hour or two of discussion and thoughtfulness. But if it becomes days and you're obsessed with it and you can't make a decision and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you don't know which way to go and you keep coming back to the same two things and you just can't seem to move forward. When it's bigger, when it's blown more out of proportion and you have these emotions involved that are bigger and heavier than they should be and more paralyzing, you feel like you're paralyzed and you're procrastinating and putting it off, making the decision for a later date, or you're looking for a way to give your power away to somebody else to make the decision. You're asking everyone else's opinions, or you're saying, oh, I wonder, what about this factor? Well, I'll just see what that is, and then I'll know what way to do. So like giving your power away is something that we look for, putting it off, procrastinating. We're just stuck in freeze and we don't realize it. And one of the first things that you need to do when you can't make a decision is stop and realize, okay, this is a pattern. This is a pattern that I am living out because somewhere back in my history, I made a choice that either went very badly for me. So every time a little decision comes up, I'm reliving basically that event where I'm reliving having to make a choice, and I'm so paralyzed to make the wrong choice, but I don't realize that I'm just reliving what happened in the past, right? I regret what happened. I made a wrong decision. I can never go back and change that. So now I'm hyper-focused on all my future decisions. Or at some point in your life, you were fine making decisions when you were a child, and at some point you made a decision that disappointed someone else, probably your parents, and you learned at an early age from patterns that making the wrong decisions leads to disapproval and abandonment. So now you're hyper-focused on making the right decision so that people won't leave you, so that you'll be approved of, so that you'll be loved and safe, okay? So this is usually what it comes down to, just not wanting to be abandoned and wanting to be approved of by basically from your childhood. You've learned this. So it's a way to please and to get love and to feel safe from mom and dad. Or you've truly have made a decision that led to a consequence that you have serious regret about and remorse, and you always look back at it and think, if I could only go back and change it, but you can't. So now you're hyper focused on all these meaningless choices in your life moving forward because you sense this life or deathness around them. And even though it might be choosing between, what paint to put on your walls, this shade or that shade, it's really, that big decision that you made in your past that is still, you have regret over. And you just feel the gravity of making a decision. You're so afraid to screw it up, to make a wrong decision, because you never ever want to live with that kind of guilt, regret, or consequence again. So usually that's what it boils down to. And the fact is that we are in freeze. We're paralyzed about making decisions. We're putting it off. We're procrastinating. We're looking for ways to get out of it. We're looking for somebody else to swoop in and help us, to decide for us. And that is the classic hallmark of being frozen in the fight, flight, or freeze response. And this is what keeps us stuck in chronic illness. So freeze ultimately holds us in these patterns for much longer than we need to. So learning how to make decisions is a way to break that pattern, thus eventually ending the freeze response that we're stuck in. And when we end the freeze response that we're stuck in, we can start to loosen everything, and we start to not only be able to make decisions, but we start to heal our chronic illness, our chronic depression, our chronic anxiety, our chronic pain, our chronic symptoms, our chronic suffering, because we're no longer stuck feeling helpless, right, in this spot. Okay, so let's talk about how do we make decisions, because that's what we're here to do, is to break the fear of this indecisive nature so that we can focus on not even what the choice is going to be. Like, do we want to paint our walls green or blue? That's really not even the choice. The thing that we have to realize when we get stuck in that is I need to learn how to make a decision and feel okay with it so I can move forward and not look back. That's really your goal in that moment is not really, it's not about which is the perfect shade of blue or green for my wall, which one is better. It's not about that. It's when you're stuck there and you're like, oh, but I could choose this blue or that blue, and I love them both so much, and if I choose this one, I never get to see that one, and if I choose that one, I won't get to see this one. And it can become, you think it's about the blue. It's never about the blue, okay? So it's about you wanting to be safe, protected, loved, approved of by mom and dad. Or it's about trying to right the wrong that happened to you in your past, the decisions that you made that were the wrong ones that you feel regret over and remorse and you wish you could go back and do something else. That's what this shade of blue choice that's in front of you is about. And the sooner you realize that, become conscious of it and say, okay, my job right now is to break out of the freeze response. And how I can break these patterns is by choosing. And it doesn't matter what I choose, but getting good at choosing really is how you move forward. So no matter what the choice is, and no matter what the options are, we have to get good at recognizing that all we need to do is learn how to make a choice. Make it and move forward. That's basically your goal. So that every time you come up against decisions, the time that it takes you to make them can become shorter and shorter and shorter until you're not frozen anymore when you come up against something, right? You're just living your life. You're just choosing in the moment, moment to moment, and you're not stuck anymore. You're not frozen. Okay, so let's begin. All right, so the first thing you want to do when you realize that you're stuck in this indecisive nature and you can't make a decision on what you want to do, and it becomes an obsession, it becomes a monkey mind situation, the hamster wheel situation, the analysis, the productive analysis has now become something that's crippling you and holding it back. So this is a bad pattern. It's an addictive pattern. You're in an addictive cycle of pattern. What is an addiction? It's something that has negative consequences on your life. It's a pattern of behavior, an obsession that leads to something bad in your life that is not good for you. And that's what this is. So the first thing that you can do is become aware. It's always become aware. It's become conscious that really the problem is not the choices that are in front of you, but becoming aware that you're in a pattern and that you're trying to break a pattern. So you're not trying to make a decision which one's better, because you can never know the outcome. You can never know which one's better. They might be two great decisions that you get to choose from, and one could be a little bit better and one could be, a little bit, they could just be bad. They could both be bad. There's a lot of different ways that this could go, and you'll never know. That's the key. You'll never know. So sometimes you do the analysis and then you just have to choose. So the first thing is to become aware. You're in a pattern, a negative, addictive pattern that you need to break. You're just ending a pattern here. So rather than focusing on the decision and which one's the better decision, focus on ending the pattern. How can I make this decision? How can I end this negative pattern? Which is the real thing that you really need to do in that moment. You need to break the pattern of indecisiveness. That's your only goal. So the second thing, after you become aware and you realize that it's not which decision is better, but it's how can I break this pattern of indecisiveness. Then the second thing I like to do is give yourself an arbitrary deadline. So deadlines are really great because when you're in freeze state, when you're frozen, when you're going over things, it's tempting to just keep living that cycle. It's tempting to just keep going over it. It's a comfortable situation. You're not really sure. You're looking for help. You're looking for some magic answer. You're looking for, right? If you were back in the day and you were caught in fight, flight, or freeze because you were up against a tiger in the woods and, your first instinct was to run, but you couldn't get away, and your second instinct was to fight, but you realized it was too big for you. Your last resort is always to freeze. Freeze. Hope it goes away. Hope your playing dead will trick it and have it go away. That's always the last resort. So the first resort is always to run, the second one is always to fight, and the third one is to freeze. If you're stuck in freeze, you've just given your power away. You're powerless. You're hoping that something else You have no power in that situation. You're just hoping that the bear will move on and leave you alone. Just like in real life, you're hoping for something to swoop in and dawn on you and give you the ability to see clearly and make this decision, or somebody just to make it for you so that you don't have to do it. So once we realize we need to give ourselves a decision, just like if you were back in that day lying on the floor waiting for the bear, you're just going to keep lying there continually until either you get killed by the bear or the bear moves away. And then you need something to snap you out of this frozen state and say, run. So it could literally be somebody yelling, run. And that animal or you could get up and be like, now's my chance, and run. So when you're in that situation, remember, you're just frozen. You're not likely going to get up and just start running or fighting at an opportunity that is now gives you back your power. You're going to keep laying there because you feel helpless and you feel like you have no other choice. So you need to give yourself a deadline. Deadlines help push people and they help move things forward in a quicker manner than if you just naturally waited until you felt ready, because you're not going to feel ready. So give yourself a deadline and say, okay, now if it's a big life decision, like should I take this job or should I go back to school? Should I take this career opportunity or should I, if it's something big and major that's going to change your life and your family's life, then give it a day, 2 days, like a week maximum. Like that would be even overkill. Give it, a few hours of thoughtful analysis and writing out the pros and cons and really thinking about it. And then say, if I don't have a decision tomorrow at noon, I'm going to make one. If it's not clear to me by then, after doing this analysis, at noon tomorrow, I'm going to make a decision. And the way I'm going to make a decision is by flipping this coin, and whatever it comes up is like heads is this and tails is this. And that's it. And by 12:01, I'm going to have my decision. So if I can't find a way to make sense of these pros or cons or my list or my analysis before then I'm letting the coin decide. I'm not waiting any longer. Whatever it is, you accept and you move forward, because you had the choice to choose the other thing. So if you're feeling like, oh no, then you'll know for the next time to trust yourself rather than the coin. But whatever it is you choose, you don't go back to the drawing board. You make a decision. Don't stop sitting on the fence. Stop waiting for the bear. Like, take your chance and go forward. Remember, we're not looking to make the perfect decision. We're looking to break and end a pattern of indecisiveness that is keeping you stuck in your life. Okay, the better we get at making decisions, the quicker we get at making them, the more we free up this freeze response, the more we start to take back our own power and realize that we do have power. We can trust ourselves. We start to listen to our inner voice again. We start to not wait to have to be told by the coin. We start to think, I should choose. I can choose. I have the power. I don't know what's going to be the right decision, but I can just do this. I can just choose. I can put a deadline on it and choose. And you start to begin to trust yourself. You start to begin to take back your options. Okay, so this is what the first thing that we need to do. First, become aware that we're really looking to break a pattern. Second, give yourself a deadline. And if it's something simple like choosing paint colors for a wall, give it a look over, narrow it down, maybe give yourself an hour. Take a break, look them over, whatever, and say, if I haven't decided by 3 o'clock this afternoon, I'm just going to make a decision. If I can't seem to, I'm going to get out my trusty old coin, flip the coin, accept whatever comes up, and move forward. And if I regret listening to the coin and I should have chose this one, then I'll know for the next time. It just gives me information. It reminds me that I had the power all along, that I could have chose what I wanted. I didn't have to wait for a coin to choose it for me. I don't need that confirmation or that help from anyone. I can choose. I can just make a decision, go with whatever feels the best in your gut at the time. You'll never be able to know for sure. Just pick it and move forward. Stop the analysis paralysis. That's the pattern you're trying to break. And there's a reason for it, because it's going to help you in your life move forward with everything and move forward with your chronic illness. Okay. All right. So number 3, I want you to realize that very few decisions are absolutely final. Meaning you can test drive it for a while. You can move your family to that city. You can take that job and test it out. You can choose that blue color for the wall and paint the whole house in that color. What happens if, and don't just keep hedging, don't just keep sitting on the fence and wondering, make a decision and live with it. Live with that decision, live with it, give yourself a choice. I like to give myself not only a deadline to make a decision, but like an extended period of time to live with the choice. I'm gonna give myself, and I'm gonna live with this, I'm gonna make a choice, and I'm gonna live with that choice for 2 months, 3 months, a year. Give yourself the appropriate time to live with the decision of that. And if I don't like it, guess what? Most decisions, thankfully, can be unmade. You can quit that job. You can go back to school. You can move your family again. Yes, it's not ideal. You can paint the room a different shade of blue. Yes, it's not ideal. Yes, it's maybe not financially the best decision. Yes, there's a lot of consequences that come with it. But if it's really that bad and you really have that much regret over a decision that you've made, and it really truly turns out to be not the right thing, which many things we don't know. We just have to live them, and they are the right thing once we choose them. You have to let go of the other decision. But if you absolutely can't, after your time limit has passed that you've set for yourself, if you said, okay, I'm going to live with this for 3 months, then you can go and make the other decision. Because it's never like, so what I like to do is sometimes when you have the decision, like, you know, should I paint my room this shade of blue or that shade of blue? Take it to the end. Take it to the very end of the road. What happens if you choose this and you don't choose this? What are the negative consequences? What is the absolute worst thing that can happen? And then you start to see like, oh my God, the absolute worst thing that could happen here is I really don't like that color blue and I have to repaint the whole thing. It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take extra money. But you're going to realize that like, hey, nobody died, right? And then there are decisions that are really seem like life and death, right? Like, what if you're sick and you have cancer and you're like, what treatment should I do? This one or this one? And the stakes are higher. It becomes harder to make decisions, right? So you've given yourself an appropriate amount of time to do the necessary research. You've given yourself the deadline, you've chosen, and then you give yourself still, like if you're choosing between chemotherapy and natural protocols, you can give yourself a reasonable time. I'm going to test my blood. I'm going to keep testing my blood. I'm going to choose natural protocols and I'm going to let it run for 4 weeks. I'm going to let it run for 8 weeks. I'm going to do it for 3 months. And if I haven't had any improvement, if things are getting worse, right? You make a decision. You say, well, if I've gotten 2% better, I'm going to keep going, after 2 months. But if I've gotten, 5% worse, I'm going to switch. And so you realize even when the stakes are the highest, there's still often a way that you can re-choose if things are not going well. So it's worse for that person with cancer to stay and not know which one to do, because then the cancer's just getting worse and they're not doing either of them. And they're living with this what if and this terror coming over them. Once they take their power back and they're like, you know what? I'm going to do natural protocols. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to switch to this. Then they're doing something. They've got their power back. Or they say, you know what? I'm too afraid to do natural protocols. I'm going to just go for the chemotherapy. Then they're doing something. If it turns out to be the wrong decision, they can switch. They can still switch, to natural protocols. It's very important, even in the most critical of situations, to make a choice. To stop sitting on the fence, because then you take your power back and you start to work towards something that you feel is the best thing that you can do in the moment. And just remember, play it out to the end. It's the next thing you can do. Play it out to the end. What is the worst that can happen? And if that worst happens, what can you do then? Is there still a way to change it or to make another decision? There likely is. And if there is, if you're still breathing, there's always a way, right? There's always a way to make a new choice. So really, you have to realize that the paralyzation of making a decision one way or the other is truly keeping you stuck. It's making the situation worse. It's making you powerless. It's keeping you in freeze state. Nothing good comes from indecision. Everything good comes from taking your power and choosing and living it and doing your best with it. And trying. And then if you fail, then choosing again, starting over. But never to just sit there and wait and wait and wait and hope the bear goes away, right? That is ultimately not the best decision for us. That's a last resort, and we want to get out of last resort thinking. We don't always want to be in freeze state. That's a last resort in a critical situation when you're getting eaten by a bear. Okay, that is not for everyday living, and that's where most of us are. We're indecisive every day, and it's truly keeping you chronically ill and chronically sick. All right, so we're getting closer to making these decisions. So the next thing I like to do is tell myself, once you make the decision at 12 o'clock or whatever, if you can make this decision by 12 o'clock, once you start to get better at it, you say, if you can make this decision at 12 o'clock without using the coin or before your deadline, I'm going to reward you. I'm going to give you a reward. You're going to get this, right? I'm going to praise you. I'm going to throw a party for you. You're going to have this treat that you want, or this, thing that you want. I'm going to give you an extra thing. I'm going to give you a bonus, right? I mean, marketers use it all the time. If you buy this thing by a certain hour, you get a bonus gift, a free bonus gift. Give yourself a free bonus gift. If you're motivated by food, if you're motivated by a vacation, if you're motivated by time off, if you're motivated by having a gift, getting something that you wanted, something that something extra, a bonus, give yourself a gift. Okay? If you can make this decision by X time, I'm going to reward you. Constantly rewarding the brain to take back its power to make a decision, and you get a bonus, you get a gift, you get a reward if you choose before a certain deadline. Right? This is another way to motivate yourself to make a decision. And so pick something that's really great every time and be generous with yourself. If you make a decision, if you get out of analysis paralysis with something that's causing you emotional stress or distress and you can't seem to choose from, be generous with yourself. Give yourself an awesome gift. Right? So say you can't choose. Give yourself both if you want. Choose something, and then give yourself a bonus. Something you've always been wanting. Something little, something big, whatever you can spend the money on, whatever you can spend the time doing. Reward yourself. It's key. It's important, and it helps. It works. Okay, so what if you have a really, for whatever reason, you're on the hamster wheel, you have a really important decision, you really feel like you just can't make it. You've given yourself a deadline for whatever reason, you've flipped the coin, but you just can't get over it. You just can't make the decision. You keep bringing this back up, but you just keep doing it. So if that's the case, and for whatever reason the coin isn't working because you're outsmarting yourself in that coin and you're saying, it doesn't really matter what I flipped, and then you go back to a piece of paper, and I know some of you will do this because we just can't live with the final decision of something. If this is you, then outsource your decision. If you're looking for help, then truly get help. Right? If you just feel like you need somebody to, a lot of times what happens is if we don't decide, that's a decision. And when we do nothing, we usually walk away empty-handed, right? Because we could choose this way, we could choose this way, and they're both more right than choosing nothing. If you choose nothing, you get nothing. If you choose this way, you get this. If you choose this way, you get this. If you choose nothing, you might not have to live with the consequences of choosing the wrong one, but you get nothing. So not choosing is always, always, always going to leave you empty-handed and leave you with nothing. So if you can't, for whatever reason, trust yourself to impose the deadline on yourself, to flip the coin, to make the decision, to reward yourself, if these strategies are just not working, if you're just not strong enough, then literally give the decision to somebody else. Say, I need help with this decision, and if I haven't made a decision by this time, I want you to choose. I want you to take the decision away from me and choose. And yeah, you're giving your power away. This is a last resort to give the power to somebody else to choose, to make the decision for you and to do it, because it's never the one that comes from your own intuition or your own heart. But if somebody else makes the decision, it's easier sometimes. And at least if a decision is made, you can move forward. Making the decision, remember, is your goal here. Now, I'd like you to do it with power. I'd like you to be able to make the decision. I do not want you to have to end up giving the decision to somebody else. But ask somebody, a stranger, a friend, somebody you love, trust, whoever, what would you do in this situation? And whatever you do, whatever they say, do it. Make the decision. Give them the power to make the decision for you, and then live with that decision. That is still better. Even giving your power away to somebody else, although as a last resort, because I want you to be doing it yourself, is still better than not deciding at all, because you're still at least unstucking, right? It's like being that person on the ground, laying there and holding my hand up and saying, I know I need to get up. I know this bear is going to eat me, and I need to run. I need to make a choice whether I'm going to fight it or run. I need to choose one of those things. So lying here being frozen is ultimately going to lead to my death. I need to choose one of those things, but I just can't decide. So just continuing to lay there will ultimately get you dead. So even if you have to call out to a nearby passerby who's watching and say, which one would you do? And then they tell you fight or run, and you just listen to them, that's still a better option than just laying there and dying. So now you kind of have the order, right? It's better to just choose. It's better to motivate yourself to choose and reward yourself. Then it's better, the second best choice that you have is better to impose a deadline to decide, and if you haven't decided by that date, to flip a coin. The next best thing is to flip the coin, or to say to somebody else, even to give your power to somebody else and say, you make the decision if I haven't decided by this time. But it's always better to get a decision made, no matter how you get that decision made. And I'd like it to be from your own intuition. Just whatever feels more right, give yourself the deadline and make the choice yourself. Don't resort to the coin. Don't resort to giving your power to somebody else, but use those strategies if you have to. Make the decision, because we're just trying to break a pattern. We're trying to get unstuck. We're trying to move forward. We're trying to learn how to do it. And sometimes we need a bit of a crutch in order to get there. And then on your next decision, see if you can do it. If you've had to give your power away to somebody else to make the decision for you, and you've done that once or twice, then the next one, challenge yourself to use the coin. And then the one before that, challenge yourself to use the deadline. The one before that, challenge yourself to get something, to get the reward, to beat the deadline. Challenge yourself to take less and less time. Challenge yourself to get it down from hours to minutes. Challenge yourself to just immediately, as soon as the decision comes up in front of you, just choose and move forward. This is where we're going to. This is where we're getting to. And when you can live your life like that, when a decision comes up, you just make it. You just make it and move forward. You're no longer stuck. You're no longer in freeze. And that will help with everything, including this chronic illness, this chronic pain, this chronic condition that you're living with. It will change your life, because you'll be powerful. You'll be living in the moment, in the present moment. You'll be no longer afraid of the past. You'll be no longer fearful of the future. You'll be living for now, and you will be freeing yourself. This is taking one step towards freeing. You must learn how to make a decision. I hope this video has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.